This entire thing could not be working out better for Trump. I mean, the Democratic Party, since he has come back into office, has put all of their time, all of their energy, all of their whatever they can muster into fighting for illegal immigrants, keeping them in the country, keeping Trump from deporting them. And so time and again, we get into these situations where Trump is doing something completely lawful and within his authority, such as sending the National Guard to control a riot. And he's doing it for the purpose of controlling a situation to keep other American citizens safe. And Democrats continue to step on this rake, continue to die on this hill that is a huge political loser for them. And it's getting worse. These stunts, trying to get yourself arrested, lunging at cabinet secretaries. You've got a judge in Wisconsin, trying to help sneak illegal aliens out the back of the courthouse. Democrats across the country spending all of their time and energy on illegal aliens, and Donald Trump spending all of his time and energy on trying to enforce the laws of the land. Complete winner, and he's well within right to do it.
Did he really lunge at Chrissy Nome?
Yes. Did you watch it? Of course he did. He comes barging into a press conference, running up to a stage. I mean, what is the security supposed to do?
Boy. So we got to continue our coverage of the Democrat Party completely and totally embarrassing themselves and showing you just how much of a clown show their party has become. Because at this point, they don't fight for anybody or anything except against Trump and for illegals, right? This party is officially the party of being for illegals and against Trump, right? And nothing else at all, right? I think that's the perfect way to describe the Democrat Party. And they have recently taken some massive L's when it comes to this issue of supporting the illegals, specifically supporting domestic terrorism in the name of trying to protect the illegals. You have domestic terrorists out in LA, in California, and across the country in these liberal cities that are attacking ICE agents, okay? And Trump used the military in order to protect ICE agents, and Gavin Newsom sued, okay, in court to try to take back control of the National Guard and got rejected.
A federal appeals court has ruled in President Trump's favor regarding control over thousands of members of California's National Guard. So for the very latest on this, we're joined by CNN senior legal analyst Ellie Honig. Ellie, how big of a win is this for President Trump?
Well, it's huge, Pam, because it goes to presidential powers and the extent of them. So the core ruling here from the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals is, yes, the federal courts do have some role in reviewing the president's decision to deploy the National Guard. However, the courts can't just second guess the president and overturn him if they disagree. The Court of Appeals says all of us here in the federal judiciary, we have to give very broad deference to the president. So unless his decision is patently absurd or based on bad faith, then we have to step back and let the president exercise this power. So it's a big win for President Trump. As we know, he has sought at all turns to expand his executive authority, and this is a win for him.
Yeah, so Democrats taking L's left and right, especially when it comes to this issue of illegal immigration. They're getting more and more desperate, right? Their tactics are getting more desperate. And that leads us to this story right here involving Senator Jose Padilla. I meant, my bad, Alex Padilla, or Alejandro Padilla, right? That's his actual real name. Alejandro Padilla, right? He's upset that J.D. Vance called him Jose, okay? And now he's running to MSNBC and he's boo-hooing and crying in a similar fashion that he did on the congressional floor, boo-hooing and crying after being manhandled by federal agents after he broke into a press conference being held by the Secretary of the Department of Homeland Security and tried to force her to answer questions when he didn't have permission. This was not a Q&A session. And again, he's lucky he wasn't shot, right? And it's just funny to me how this dude is trying to play victim. And he's using all of the attention that he's getting in order to grift, right? Clearly, he's trying to fundraise. He's trying to make a name for himself because literally nobody knew who this guy was before all of this, which, again, is so hilarious about J.D. Vance calling him Jose because, again, nobody knows who this guy is. He's lucky J.D. didn't call him Jesus, right? Or Jorge, okay? It could have been worse than Jose. Right? It could have been worse. But anyways, let's go ahead and get into this dude crying some more, right? He might be one of the softest senators I've ever seen.
By the senior senator from California, Alex Padilla. Senator, I want to play some sound from the vice president's trip to Los Angeles yesterday and get your response on the other side. Sure.
Well, I was hoping Jose Padilla would be here to ask a question, but unfortunately, I guess he decided not to show up because there wasn't the theater. And that's all it is. You know, I think everybody realizes that's what this is. It's pure political theater. These guys show up. They want to be captured on camera doing something. They want to be able to go back to their far left groups and to say, look, me, I stood up against border enforcement. I stood up against Donald Trump. When all they're really standing up for is for drug cartels to run rampant over our country and sex traffickers to be able to continue to traffic little kids into our country. That's what you're doing when you stand against border enforcement. So I think these guys, we ought to laugh them out of the building.
Yeah, I mean, he's 100% right. At this point, it's just publicity stunts, right? That's all this is. Okay, these people are trying to get themselves arrested. Okay, they're trying to get their ass whooped by federal agents so that they can boo-hoo on and cry victimhood, which again is exactly what this dude is doing. That's exactly what he's doing. JD is 100% right. Okay, this is just a virtue signal. They are powerless. They know they're powerless. They're losing. So what they're trying to do is that they're trying to pretend as if they're victims, right? They're getting themselves in trouble. Okay, they are trying to do things that they don't have permission to do. Okay, in order to make a scene and to make it seem like they're doing something, like they're fighting against Hitler, right? This is what they're doing, right? That's the grift.
Just want to say some things here. Vice President J.D. Vance served with you in the Senate for multiple years. He is currently the president of the Senate where you serve. He also went to Yale. I assume that he knows your name is Alex Padilla. Your response to him calling you Jose?
Oh, he knows my name. He knows my name. Look, sadly, it's just an indicator of how petty and unserious this administration is. But he's the vice president of the United States. You think he'd take the situation in Los Angeles more seriously? You know, you think maybe he'd take a moment to talk to some of the families who have been impacted, have been terrorized, to feel what's really going on the ground? I mean, you saw him shaking hands with Marines, but did he listen to the Marines? Because we have, you know, report after report of the Marines, so many of the Marines themselves that don't want to be there. That's not why they enlisted. Or if not the migrant families, how about the employers, right, who I know are speaking up because they're concerned about their workforce? Or how about this? Just take a moment and talk to the sheriff of Los Angeles County. Talk to the chief of police of Los Angeles City and hear from them their frustration for the lack of communication, the lack of coordination, this unnecessary and counterproductive buildup of the National Guard and the Marines, making their job as local law enforcement more difficult. Or even if you couldn't do that.
Well, that's not what I'm hearing, right? That's definitely not what I'm hearing, okay? I have some sources out of Los Angeles when it comes to local law enforcement, and I'm definitely not hearing that they're frustrated with the president or the administration. What I'm hearing is that they're actually frustrated with the Democrats, right? With you guys not allowing them to coordinate with ICE, not allowing them to work with the federal government. You're the ones that are actually making it harder for them. So again, this guy is trying to make it seem like the federal government is the problem. It's like, no, you guys are the problem, right? The state and local governments are the problem here. But again, like JD said, where was this guy? Where was Jose at this press conference, right? He had a chance to ask the vice president all these questions that he claimed that he had, right? So pressing that he broke into a press conference to ask Kristi Noem these questions, right? So pressing questions, okay? He just had to do it. He had to ask a question. Why didn't he show up to talk to the vice president? Why did he show up? JD opened up the press conference for questions. You would think this senator would be there since he had so many pressing questions, but he wasn't there. Oh, maybe it's because he couldn't break into this one, right? Maybe because he couldn't cause a scene at this press conference, right? Maybe that's it. Maybe because he couldn't, find a way to play victim, right? He may have had to do something super crazy, right? Like he may have had to run up on the podium on JD, right? In order to get the attention that he seeks. Again, these people are not serious. They're not actually really trying to work with the administration or to talk to the administration or to do any of the things that they claim. They're trying to play a political game here. That's all they're doing. They're virtue signaling to the far left extremists in their party. That's what they're doing.
How about taking a moment to go to the Pacific Palisades and Pasadena, Altadena, and talk to the families who lost everything in the fires from last January? Because guess what? Months and months later, there's still no additional disaster aid coming to so many people in the region. We got a lot of important work to do. But this is how the vice president chooses to act, and that says a lot.
You know, we should also point out that a Vance spokesperson said, quote, of the vice president, he must have mixed up two people who have broken the law. You didn't break any laws.
I didn't break any laws.
Senator, we've known each other.
Well, again, that's up to your interpretation. I think that this dude should be federally charged. But, hey, that's neither here nor there. What I do know is that, again, the meltdown on MSNBC over this is hilarious, okay? I mean, they're just flat out accusing JD of being a racist, right? They're saying that JD calling Alejandro, again, is racist. They actually confronted the LA mayor, Karen Bass, over this, and take a look.
Mayor Bass, in black and brown communities, being misnamed often has some underlying tendencies in it. And, the conversation around this that people are having online, folks that I talked to even just in the last, hours since it happened, is that it's racist. Do you think that J.D. Vance was being racist to Alex Padilla?
Well, let me just tell you that I know that he is aware of the senator's name, and there was no reason for him to do that at all. Just like there was no reason for him to accuse me and the governor of actually contributing to the problem. We had a couple of days of vandalism. We were able to control the situation. The National Guard was never needed here. This has all been a political stunt, but I also think it's been a test. It's been a test to see how much will the American public put up with a president, an administration that comes in and seizes power from a governor, something that was completely unnecessary in our city.
Yeah, so we have more crying here on MSDNC, okay, because they're upset about the fact that they're being turned away from the ICE facilities, right? So again, the stunts that they're pulling, okay, in order to try to raise some money, to try to make it seem like they're doing something, right? They're not working, okay, because they're being turned away when they go to the ICE facilities, and they're upset because they're saying, well, we're members of Congress, therefore we should be able to go inside of these facilities at will, right? And that's just simply not the case. That's not how it works. That's not how oversight works. You can't just show up anytime you want and demand to go inside. But this is what Democrats are doing, right? Instead of making actual schedule appointments, right, to go in and do oversight the right way, they're just showing up, they're getting turned away, and then they turn around and boo-hoo-on and crime victim, claiming that they've been done wrong when they're not going through the proper channels to do what they claim they're trying to do. Because again, none of this is real. All of it is fake. It's 100% fake. So let's go ahead and get into it.
Congressman Benny Thompson of Mississippi. He's the ranking member of the House Homeland Security Committee. And also with us is Democratic Congresswoman Judy Chu. She represents parts of Los Angeles County. I would like to know if either of you would like to take a stab at responding to the comments made by the vice president. Congressman Thompson.
Well, thank you so much for having me. As you know, members of Congress have exclusive oversight on ICE facilities. The law is very clear. Members have been trying to do that, and that's being prevented in certain areas. We also want to look at the holding facilities that are turning into jails. When you pick someone up, you process them, and you take them to the facilities. We now have reports that processing facilities are now being used as holding facilities. So members, based on what the law allows them, are going to look at those facilities. We're doing it all over the country. And obviously, the secretary thinks she's above the law by trying to implement policies that are clearly against the law.
Representative Chu, you have lived this very experience of attempting to do your job and being turned away. Let's take a look at the moment you were denied access to a detention center in Los Angeles this week.
Ma'am, this is not a detention facility. This is only temporary, a holding area. So any detention facility inspections you need to do will be conducted at Adelanto.
We were at Adelanto, and actually I've read the law, and the law says that any facility that is conducted by the Department of Homeland Security for the purpose of detaining aliens are subject to inspection by members of Congress.
Okay, ma'am, let me get you an ICE supervisor, okay?
Now,
Congresswoman, did you?
You know that this is a stunt. Look at this woman. She showed up with a mic. This is a mic right here, right? So she got a mic. She got a camera. Okay, I mean, they basically set this up for TV. They set up for TV. I guarantee you she showed up unannounced. She didn't call. She didn't say, hey, I'm a member of Congress. I want to inspect this facility. Can we set up an appointment, a time to come by? No, right? No, she didn't do that. She just showed up and she knew that she would get denied. And again, they set it all up for TV so you can hear clearly everything that was being said. This is fake. This is fake. It's just one of those things where it's getting old now, right? It's one of those things where it's just like, if these Democrats really want to keep effing around, then they can find out, right? I think that the administration has been very, I'm going to say they've been soft, right? I think that's inaccurate to say they've been soft. They have not been tough enough, right? Because again, these Democrats, some of them, they want to go to jail. They want to go to jail. And if that's what they want to do, then I think it's time to do what we got to do and just send them to jail, right? That's just what we're going to have to do at this point, because they're going to continue to do this until one of them ends up going to jail, or one of them, ends up in a situation that, hey, they may get seriously injured, right? Because of their recklessness.
Congresswoman, did you in fact get on the line with that ICE supervisor? If you did, what were you told and what questions remain for you?
No, they never brought that ICE supervisor to me. They just ignored me. However, I repeatedly pushed that button and continued to try to make my way in. By the way, she said it's just a temporary facility, but guess what the name of that center is called? It's called the Metropolitan Detention Center. When did it change into a field office or temporary facility? As far as I'm concerned, it never changed, and we certainly had the legal right to do oversight in that facility where so many detainees were staying overnight and who needed to have this oversight to see whether they were getting legal advice, whether they were getting their food and medicines. We needed to ensure that the conditions were okay for them.
Amazing. Again, MSNBC, if they were a real news organization, they would ask the question of, how many times have you done this for your actual constituent, right? How many times have you showed up to somebody's house, one of your constituents, right, in one of these, not so affluent neighborhoods, and checked on them and said, hey, is the water running? Is the electricity on? You got a nice place to sleep at night, a comfortable bed to sleep in, right? How's your living conditions? What can I do to help you, right? Have you ever done that to one of your actual constituents, or is this just something that you do for illegals? I've never seen Democrats fight this hard for their actual constituents. Well, they think that illegals are their constituents, right? I mean, these people basically call the illegals undocumented citizens, right? Abrego Garcia is he's a Maryland man, right? According to his senator. So, it's just wild to me why Democrats think that this is good optics, right? This is not good optics, because again, it's not like you've ever seen Democrats fight this hard for actual U.S. citizens. It really is kind of shameful that they think this is a good idea and they're tripling down on it.
Congressman Thompson, help me understand something. We are witnessing over and over again members of Congress be subject to humiliation and disrespect and aggravated assault, if you really want to take it down that street. What is the recourse available to a member of Congress or members of Congress to haul into their space the person behind that box, the superintendent who doesn't show up and as Congressman Chu just mentioned, does not take the time to meet with them? What recourse do you have to make sure that those individuals behind those doors are held accountable to you as the member of Congress who was on that site and asked for the oversight opportunity that's required and allowed by law? What recourse do you have? Because all we're seeing now is the turn away and nothing.
I don't hear the level of screaming, because if I were in Congress right now, oh hell yes, there would be a lot of noise at these detention centers. But I don't understand why it seems like it happens and then it's quiet.
Because it's fake. That's why, you idiot. I can't believe this guy continues to call himself a Republican. I'm not even sure if he does at this point. There's nothing straight or Republican or conservative about this guy. But because it's fake, that's why. They don't actually really want to get in there to do any oversight. They're doing it for the cameras. If they actually want to do oversight, they will make an appointment. But they're not. They're not. That's why. Okay? It's all about getting it on camera, boo-hoo, whining, and crying, and then moving on. Because they don't actually really care about doing what they claim they're trying to do.
Well, I think part of what's happening is many members, as you know, we are out on break this week, and some members went to their respective districts where they have facilities to go and see. We come back on Monday. I think you'll see a ramped up effort. One of the things we're looking at, to be honest with you, is whether or not we can go to court and force the department to follow the law. The secretary is putting those employees in those facilities in an untenable position because they are now having to break the law based on what their supervisor, or in this instance, the secretary, is saying. It's not a good position. Democrats believe in the rule of law. If there is an opportunity for members to go to court and hold this administration, for which we've done in a number of occasions, accountable for what they're doing, we will do it. We're talking to the lawyers right now. The law is clear, but when the House, the Senate, and the White House is controlled by Republicans, it's a difficult task.
AKA, they can't do anything. Right? They can't do anything. All of this is a stunt. These people are not good faith actors, and it's pathetic at this point. But like I said, they're going to F around, and they're going to find out, right? They're going to try the wrong ICE agent. They're going to try the wrong facility. They're going to try to do something crazy that is going to end up bad, right, for one of these people if they continue to escalate this stuff. Because, again, it's being done as a political stunt. Again, they're not acting in good faith. And, it's just a dangerous game overall, okay? That's really what it is. So, hey, let me know what you guys think. Make sure you like, comment, and subscribe. Most importantly, share a Black conservative perspective. Peace.